to get my back blown out in peace. You think I got time to talk about a divorce that's a year old?
When the first whispers started about Aaron Pierre and Teyana Taylor, almost nobody took them seriously. It felt like just another Hollywood rumor, the kind that swirls around any two famous people who happen to be spotted in the same room together. But if you look back, if you pay attention to every small clue that was sitting right out in the open, you can see the beginnings of something that was bound to collapse in spectacular fashion. It was as if the entire situation was already cracked before it even began. And now, with these leaked messages, it feels like the final blow that no one can ignore. People who were there in those early days said Aaron and Teyana had this magnetic pull. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was the kind of chemistry you only catch if you're really watching. He was coming off a wave of career highs, and she was coming out of one of the most complicated relationships she'd ever known. Everyone around them sensed that she was looking for stability and maybe a place to set down her heartbreak. But the reality is, sometimes the very person you think will save you becomes the one who reminds you of everything you've been trying to forget. At first, they kept everything low-key. Teyana wasn't ready for more headlines about her love life, not after all the drama with Iman. And Aaron was cautious about letting the world in. Maybe he knew how public scrutiny could change things. Maybe he didn't want to look like the rebound everyone assumed he was. But in private, they were texting constantly. Friends said they would talk late into the night, sharing stories about childhood, dreams about the future, the kinds of conversations you have when you're still naive enough to think you can control how feelings grow. The messages back then were sweet. Screenshots that never made it to the blogs show Aaron telling Teyana how much he admired her resilience, how he'd never met anyone who fought so hard to protect her kids and her peace. She told him she hadn't smiled like that in years. It was the stuff that feels almost too perfect to be real. And maybe that's the first red flag that nobody wanted to see. As the months passed, that sweetness started to crack. Aaron had a career that kept him on the road, often surrounded by people who only knew him as the rising star. Teyana had responsibilities that kept her grounded. She couldn't just drop everything to follow him around, and she didn't want to. That difference alone was enough to start friction. But it was deeper than that. He wanted all of her attention, all the time. He said it was because he cared so much, but it started to feel like something darker. The first sign that things were shifting was when Teyana stopped sharing details about her day. She didn't want to be interrogated if she was late replying. She didn't want to explain why she was tired or why she wasn't in the mood to FaceTime. Aaron, according to a close friend, started getting possessive. He'd send long messages accusing her of being distant, of hiding things. And every time she tried to reassure him, it only seemed to make him more suspicious. That's the part that gets lost in all the gossip. How exhausting it is to love someone who won't believe you. Teyana tried to keep the peace. She'd apologize even when she hadn't done anything wrong, just to calm him down. She thought if she was patient enough, if she proved over and over that she was loyal, he would relax. But insecurity doesn't just vanish because someone loves you. Sometimes it gets louder. People close to Teyana say she started talking about ending things months before the messages leaked. But every time she got close to pulling away, Aaron would send these long, desperate texts telling her he couldn't lose her, that she was the only one who understood him, that she was his peace. It's easy for outsiders to wonder why she stayed. But if you've ever been in a relationship like that, you know exactly why. Because you keep hoping the person you first fell for will come back. Because you want to believe the best parts weren't an illusion. All those late-night texts, all the tension, all the attempts to walk away, it was like a storm waiting to break. And then came the leak. No one knows exactly who shared the messages, but the minute they hit the blogs, the damage was instant and impossible to undo. Hundreds of screenshots. Aaron's words laid bare for the world to judge. In those messages, there was no careful PR language, no filtered version of the truth. Just raw desperation and control tangled together. Aaron accusing Teyana of still loving Iman. Aaron telling her he needed her to prove she was serious by cutting ties with anyone she'd ever dated. Aaron threatening to disappear if she didn't meet his demands. He said things like, "If you really cared about me, you'd show it. You'd stop pretending." He wrote, I can't be second place to your past. Some of the texts were so intense, even fans who defended him had to take a step back. But the most heartbreaking part wasn't what he said to Teyana, it was the way her daughter got caught in the crossfire. According to someone who was there, Teyana was on the phone with a friend, her voice shaking as she read one of Aaron's messages out loud. She didn't know her daughter was standing in the doorway, listening. When she turned around and saw her child's face, she froze. The little girl asked, "Why is he saying you don't love me?" Because in one of the messages, Aaron had implied that Teyana was so stuck on her past, she couldn't love anyone fully, not even her own family. It's the kind of moment that will follow you forever. The kind you replay when you're lying awake at night, wondering if you failed the people who matter most. After that, Teyana stopped trying to contact Aaron. She stopped answering the calls from mutual friends asking if she was okay. She went quiet, except for a single post on her Instagram story that said, "Some things are unforgivable." Fans were split. Some people said she should have left long ago. Others said Aaron had manipulated her until she forgot who she was. But everyone agreed on one thing. The messages were a level of raw most people would never have the guts to share, even in private. Aaron tried to do damage control. He released a statement saying the texts were taken out of context, that he'd been venting in moments of vulnerability. But nobody bought it. The screenshots had timestamps, receipts, and an unfiltered honesty that no PR spin could erase. If anything, his attempt to minimize it just made it worse. Over the next few weeks, Teyana stayed mostly out of the public eye. Insiders said she was focused on her daughter, trying to repair the sense of safety that had been shattered. She reportedly started therapy, not just for herself, but for her little girl. Because when kids get dragged into grown-up mess, it leaves scars that don't fade easily. People who loved Teyana said she blamed herself. Not for the leak, but for not seeing the red flags sooner. For thinking she could fix someone who wasn't ready to be fixed. For believing that love could be enough to calm a storm that was always waiting to consume her. Aaron, meanwhile, kept posting as if nothing had happened. Workout videos, motivational quotes, casual selfies with captions about resilience. But the comments told a different story. Fans flooded every post with questions he wouldn't answer. Some begged him to apologize. Others demanded he leave Teyana alone. And a few defended him, insisting he was just being honest about his feelings. It's strange how the same set of facts can look so different depending on who's watching. To some people, Aaron was a man who loved too hard. To others, he was a cautionary tale about how obsession can wear the mask of romance until it's too late to escape. If you're wondering whether Teyana and Aaron have spoken since the messages leaked, the answer is no. People close to her say she has no intention of ever talking to him again. She's done trying to understand someone who used her vulnerabilities as leverage. She's done trying to explain herself to someone who is never listening. And maybe that's the only closure she's going to get. Not a neat ending, not an apology, but the quiet relief that comes from finally stepping away from something that was never going to heal. Even now, months later, the story won't die. It creeps back like a ghost every time someone stumbles upon an old screenshot or unearths a voice memo buried in a cloud backup. It's like trying to heal from a cut that keeps reopening. And honestly, that's the hardest part. You can forgive. You can move on. You can even rebuild. But the internet? It never forgets. It never lets you forget. Teyana tried to hold her head high through it all. And let's be real, this woman has weathered storms that would have broken most people. She built a sanctuary of peace around herself, brick by brick. But fame doesn't offer protection, it offers exposure. It takes every whisper, every misstep, and turns it into a trending topic. So when you see someone like Teyana breaking down, not because of what the world did, but because of what someone she trusted did, it hits different. It stings deeper. Because this wasn't just a breakup. It wasn't just some drama. This was betrayal at its most raw and public. Words that were never meant to see the light of day ended up on timelines, turned into memes, debates, hashtags. People dissected her pain like it was entertainment. And Aaron? Well, he stayed quiet. Or strategic. Depends on how you look at it. A few cryptic posts, some silence. Nothing that sounded like real accountability. Nothing that said, "I'm sorry." So, what happens now? Maybe nothing. Maybe this was the last chapter. Maybe Aaron will resurface one day with a podcast episode or a docu-series, claiming he was misunderstood, misquoted, mishandled. Maybe he'll drop a long-winded note app apology that somehow centers himself. Or maybe he'll finally own what he did. But for Teyana, the book is closed. The chapter is done. The pages are scorched. And still, there's a lesson buried in the ashes. That love, real love, isn't supposed to leave you shattered. That staying in something toxic doesn't make you loyal, it makes you lost. But we've all been there, haven't we? Holding on when we should have let go. Believing in the version of someone we created in our heads. Ignoring the red flags because the heart sees what it wants. So was Aaron just misunderstood? Or did he finally reveal who he really was all along? That's for you to decide. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you want more deep dives like this, raw, unfiltered, unapologetic, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, in the world of celebrity, there's always another mask waiting to slip.